Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are finally going to be ranking the Scream franchise. So here is your spoiler warning for Screams 1 through 7. If you have yet to see Scream 7 or any of the other ones, then just save this video to your watch later and go remedy that situation, because even if you're not going to watch my video, these movies are all required viewing because they are all awesome. So I wanted to preface this by saying that I had a hard time doing a ranking for this franchise. You know, it's not like Halloween or Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street, where there are some that are just so clearly bottom of the barrel and the easy ones to put in last place and stuff like that. There is a lot more nuance to these movies. And so what I did in order to more accurately and fairly rank these was I actually kind of went through and graded the movies on how well I think they did certain aspects in each of the films. And so I do think that it was a pretty accurate representation about how I felt about the movies too, which was awesome. And so the ranking that I'm giving you today is purely based on that point system that I did, where they ended up overall. And the only ones that I actually chose where they were going to be at on here were the two that had been tied. And I did make it where the one that I prefer more out of the two of them is the one that was at a better rank. And I'll explain that when we get to those ones as well. So in my number 7 spot, we do have Scream 7. And if you have watched my review for this one, then you will probably know that I was a little bit disappointed with it. So I was firmly in the camp that I wanted to see Stu return as a flesh and blood Ghostface once again and not just AI. And they have been kind of teasing that kind of angle about bringing a killer back since Scream 3. We had had opportunities for that in Screams 3, 4, and 7, and they ended up not really doing any of that. And I think that that is something that they really need to think about doing going forward in order to innovate and, you know, keep this franchise interesting. I mean, I'm still going to watch it regardless, but I really do think that that would be the best route for them to go into Screams 8 and 9 and so on and so forth. But I do think that there were a couple other things about this one that I didn't enjoy super well, and that would be the actual reveal that we got. I definitely did suspect all of the ghost faces that we did get. I figured if it wasn't Stu, these were going to be the people that were the ghost faces and stuff. And I also just thought the motive was very strange. I ended up having to look at a synopsis for it later on, and it was exactly what I thought, but it was just very confusing, I think. And then the other part that I had a little bit of issue with was the fact that the friend group was very underdeveloped, and I just think like the most lackluster of the friend groups out of any of the films. But I do still think that this is a fun movie. I don't want to just be negative about it or anything like that. I did have a good time, and there are certain things that I really did like about it. So, first and foremost, I liked some of the different scenes that we got. There were a lot of really fun standout ones here. I really liked the scene in Sydney's house where Ghostface had come down from the attic and where Gale ends up hitting the first Ghostface. I think that was just a really hilarious moment that I loved. I also really liked the coffee shop scene and quite a few other ones. But some of the stuff that I liked beyond the different scenes would be that we had some really good performances in here. I loved getting to see Sydney play a mom, and I think that she just went right into that role, and it was super believable. And I really liked her connection that she had with her husband, Mark. And, you know, I was sad that it wasn't going to be Mark Kincaid. I really like Patrick Dempsey and stuff. But I like Mark Evans. Joel McHale, I think, did a really good job in this role as well. And I think that Gale was awesome, and just like she usually is. And then I also really liked Tatum, especially like by the end of the movie. At that point, she was really rising to the occasion and going to end up a final girl just like her mom. And so when it comes down to it, there were like a couple other things that I thought were pretty awesome standouts in here. There were a couple really good kills. The Hannah kill in the theater was really good. And then the one in the tavern with the beer tap was really funny and just unexpected but awesome. And I also really liked the directing in here. And that's not necessarily something that I even think about a lot of the times because I don't have any knowledge of directing. But there were a couple scenes in here that were, directly playing off of scenes from the original Halloween. And it's just very clear that, Kevin Williamson has such a love for John Carpenter and, the stuff that he has made. So it's really cool to see him put an homage to that in his own film. And I just think that I would really like to continue to have Kevin direct these films, but I would like him to write them as well, because I think that's something that has been missing from this franchise for a while. So now in my number 6 spot, I have Scream 3. This is one that I have kind of gone back and forth on so many different times over the years, and it is one that I have always put more at the bottom of my ranking. And, if not for Scream 7, it might still be there. But I do think that there are a lot of fun aspects to this one as well. But the problem that I have with this one is just the fact that it didn't go with the original story idea that they had, which would have seen Stu return as the leader of a cult of ghost faces. But since there was some real life violence going on that might mirror that, they decided that it would be for everyone's best interest to change that storyline. And I don't blame them for that, although I really would have liked to have seen that story play out. But I do like what we get here. So I think that first and foremost, I really love the Hollywood setting. That is just like the natural next step for them to take it to Hollywood. This is a franchise that they clearly love movies. Like, all the people behind the scenes love them, and they make it so the characters love the movies as well. So it just makes sense to have it take place in Hollywood and be on the set of a film. And I think that the duo of Gail and Jennifer is just really awesome. I love the two of them together. I really wish that Jennifer would have survived Scream 3. That way she could have come back at some point in one of the sequels, wherever it seemed organic to put her in, because it was just such a funny dynamic between the two of them, and I would have loved to seen more of that. And I really have to give credit where credit is due, and Roman is a fantastic Ghostface. He is the only one to do it by himself at this point in the franchise, so props to him for that, because I'm sure that was very hard to, accomplish all on your own. And I think that his backstory is very heartbreaking, and I do feel for him to an extent. I think that when it comes to his motive, it's honestly the best one in the franchise. And I did kind of realize that the motives for me all just felt a little bit clunky, but I think that his is just definitely the best one out of them for sure. And, in true trilogy fashion, we learned that what we thought was the case when the credits rolled on the first film was not really the case. And had it not been for Roman, we wouldn't have this entire franchise of films and all the events that happen in them. So honestly, for like the entertainment aspect of this, Roman Bridger, we thank you. And now we can go ahead and move into my number 5 pick, and that is fittingly Scream 5. So I think that everyone was kind of collectively nervous about what was going to happen to the Scream franchise without Wes as the director after he passed away. But when I was watching this one and I just saw even the opening scene, I started to be a lot less worried about it, because I think that this opening scene at this point, from what we had gotten, is easily the best one since the original. I think that the attack with Tara is just really, really good, and it was nice to have that return to form here. This is the second time that they tried to reboot this franchise, and they were actually successful this time, because they did bring in a lot of different likable characters that they were able to have survive this one and come into the next film. And I do actually think that they are all a lot better in that next film. But I do really like them here as well. So I do think that this one had the guts to go there, and they weren't afraid to kill off some returning characters, such as Judy Hicks and then fan favorite Dewey Riley. Now, I don't really agree with the way that he got killed off. I don't think that he would have gotten, you know, disrupted by his phone going off. That's just not my Dewey. I'm sorry. But I do think that that was probably the right way to go in this franchise at that point, because it's just not believable to have, all three of the main ones survive as many times as they had at this point. Even though it breaks my heart because I love Dewey. But I do think that the reveal is a little bit weird. It's a little bit clunky and lackluster, and the motive is admittedly very wild, but as a fan of a lot of horror franchises, and a lot of which have really crappy sequels, I kind of understand their perspective a little bit. I don't know what that says about me, but I do think that this one is a lot of fun, and I enjoy rewatching it. So the next one that we have to talk about is my number 4 pick, and that is Scream 2. So Screams 5 and 2 were the ones that I had tied when I did my points and stuff, but I definitely think that Scream 2 is the better film, so I did put that one ahead. And in Scream 2, we get this one right after the success of the first film, and in it we do have Sidney and Randy, who have gone off to college, and they have become part of a new friend group. And I actually really like the friend group in this one. I think that it is pretty comparable to what we get in the first one. I think that they are all pretty well thought out characters, and I like that about this one. And I think that the character development that Sidney goes through in this movie is really, really important. So I think in the beginning of it, she has the thought that what happened in Woodsboro was just one horrific experience and hopefully, a one-time thing, but she learns very quickly into Scream 2 that that's not going to be the case. And she has this really good conversation with her drama teacher, and he gets a lot out of her, and he's trying to get her to realize that she is a fighter. And I just think that that is really important to her growth as a character, moving into the sequels that we have to come. And this one has, I think, probably my favorite, my favorite instance of Gale and Dewey together in this one. I think that is just the best with the two of them. I think maybe they have better performances on their own in separate movies, but them together into, that's my favorite version of them. And I do think that this one has some really standout scenes. A couple ones that I want to talk about would be Gale's chase scene in the college. I think that one is really neat. And then the one that I think is the best in the movie, and actually the best in the whole franchise, would be the car crash escape scene, where both Sidney and Hallie have to climb over Ghostface's unconscious body out of that cop car. That has so much tension to it. It is so scary, and I love that scene. It's one of the better scenes in horror in general, I think. And when it comes to the reveal, this is one that I have never liked quite as much. And I think, honestly, the way that a lot of people feel about the reveal in 6, and like the performance of Dermot Mulroney in that one, that's how I feel about Laurie Metcalf in Scream 2. I think that it's just a little bit too hammy for me personally, but I do still really like this third act, and especially the inclusion of Cotton Weary in here, I really love. I think that he is a really good character, and I love Liev Schreiber as an actor, so anything that we can get with him in here is awesome. And as far as this sequel goes as a whole, I think that this one taught us that we can have a sequel that is comparable to the original and still a lot of fun as well. So in my number 3 spot, I have Scream 6. And honestly, when I was starting this, I did not expect to put Scream 6 in my number 3 spot. I thought it would be a little bit lower than that for sure. I knew there were things I liked about it, but yeah, I just didn't expect it to be up here. But I think that it deserves to be here. So this one, again, starts with a fantastic opening scene, and in my opinion, the second best one in the whole franchise. They definitely broke the mold here with this opening scene due to the fact that they did unmask a Ghostface immediately after that first kill. And I think that it would have been really cool if he did not get killed off himself. That way we could actually follow a ghost face throughout the course of the film. I think that that is another direction that they could potentially take going forward that would be very interesting and innovative. And honestly, I think that it probably would have been a little better than what we did get as far as the real reveal goes. But I really did like that part. Um, but with this one, we are still following the Carpenter sisters as well as the Meeks twins, and they are going off to college in New York City. And I love the New York City setting. That is my favorite place that I have ever visited personally. So I love getting to see that any chance I get in movies and stuff. And I think that there are so many different amazing scenes in this one that, sorry, I don't know why I'm going off. I think there are a lot of amazing scenes that really showcase it being New York City and stuff. Like we have the bodega scene. I think that one is really creepy and stuff. The Ghostface call in the park, I think, is good. And then we've also got Gail in her high-rise apartment. That chase scene, I think, is really good, as well as the subway scene, which I think is another really good standout one. However, the best scene, I think, in the movie is easily the escape from the Carpenter sisters' apartment over to Danny's apartment and them going over that ladder. I think that this one is definitely more on par with that car crash escape scene from Scream 2, and I didn't think anything could possibly even be close to that one for me. But I do think it's probably the second best in the franchise. It is just very tense and scary. I'm also afraid of heights, so I think that does play into it a little bit for sure. But as far as some other things that I like, there is just fan service in spades in this movie. I love the Ghostface Museum. You know, as a big, longtime fan of this franchise, I love getting to see all that memorabilia, whether that be like the clothing of some of the killers or the props like, you know, Kenny's camera or the TV that killed Stu Macher and stuff like that. I just think it's really cool to see all of that in one place in this movie. And then I also love the fact that we did get Kirby coming back in here finally. You know, she was just such a standout in Scream 4. I loved her so much. And it was awesome to see the little Easter egg in Scream 5 on the computer screen where it shows that she had survived. That way it was setting up the fact that she could come back, and she finally got to in Scream 6. So I love that. Now, when it comes to the Ghostface reveal, I know a lot of people don't really vibe with this one, whether that be the reveal itself or like the performance of Dermot Mulroney. I actually like both just fine. First and foremost, I liked the fact that we had three ghost faces because that's something that we were all kind of wondering when we were going to get that. So I like that we finally got that in here. And I really like Dermot's performance. I don't have an issue with it. I think it's just the right amount of hammy. And the only thing that I don't really like as far as this reveal goes would be Ethan. I just think that he is super bland as a ghost face and as a character. He's just not, I don't think he's very well written, unfortunately for him. But beyond that, I have a lot of fun with this one. I don't have an issue here. And I think that this sequel did prove that we could have like the offshoots of the franchise that don't involve Sydney and they could still be enjoyable. However, obviously, I'm always going to want her to be in attendance here. But in my number 2 spot, I do have Scream 4. So this one is oftentimes at the bottom of the barrel for a lot of people in this franchise, and that could never be me. You know, I got to see this one in cinemas for the first time. It was the first Scream film I got to watch in cinemas, and it was just nothing short of mesmerizing. I am someone that actually liked the fake out opening. I was not expecting that, and I just thought it was just fun and different, and it does really go along with the whole meta side of this film. And I think that this one has a lot of pretty cool characters. There are some that are a little better than others. I don't think that Olivia and Trevor are particularly good in here, but I do think that the rest of them are. I love having three different characters that are really big horror fans with Robbie, Charlie, and Kirby. And Kirby is definitely the best out of all of them. There are plenty of horror loving ladies like myself, and it's really cool to have that representation for that in Scream 4. Um, as far as the returning characters go, I really love getting to see Sidney again. She really didn't get to be a huge part in Scream 3 because of scheduling conflicts and stuff, so it was nice to get to see her in a more full role in this one. And then when it comes to Gale and Dewey, I think that it's kind of interesting because they're both in like a different place than they normally would be. So with Gale, at the beginning of the movie, she is kind of suffering from writer's block because there haven't been a bunch of murders going on around her. And she's sort of, I don't know, getting revitalized by the fact that they are going on, which I don't know what that says about her either, but I still like her, so that's fine. And then with Dewey, we get to see him be the sheriff of Woodsboro, and good for him. I think that he deserves that. He was always good as far as being an officer goes. And with this one, we do have, I think, one really good death scene. I think it was the most brutal one up to that point in the franchise with Olivia's death. And I do think that there are some really good standout scenes in here as well, like the Cinema Club scene. I love that as a big horror nerd and stuff. And I also really loved Stabathon, as well as, Gale's chase, I guess, in that one as well. But when it comes time for the reveal, I was completely blown away. I thought that I really hadn't had a lot of suspicion as far as Jill goes. Emma Roberts, I think, does just a fantastic job in this role. She is very believable and just delightfully disturbed. I think that it made me sad that she double-crossed Charlie because I really liked him. I also kind of, a little bit anyway, liked the connection that him and Kirby had. But I do totally understand that Jill knew exactly what she was doing and she had everything planned to a T. And so I like that she went for it fully, I guess. And watching her yeet herself all over Kirby's house was not on my bingo card, but I loved it, and it's exactly what I needed. I think that is such a wow moment in this movie, and one that I will always love. Now, I do like the closing that we get at the hospital. However, I would have really liked the ending that they had wanted it to be, which was supposed to see Jill be taken out by the EMTs, and then somebody said essentially, like, we got a live one, which would be either, Sidney or Kirby, and they wouldn't say, and they would leave it on a cliffhanger and potentially just give Sidney amnesia going into what would have been the fifth film at that time. And I just think that would have been a much stronger way to end the film and would have done exactly what I think that they need to by bringing a killer back. But yeah, I do have fun with this one overall, and I just think that it is so important to me because I do like to write, and it kind of inspired me to do that at the time that it came out. And, I'm just inspired by seeing female killers as far as my own writing goes. And I think that Jill is just one of the best representations that we have gotten of that. So in my number one spot is, of course, the original. Could there be anything else in this spot? Not for me. So I think that this movie was just incredibly innovative at the time and still is right now. And with this opening scene, they flipped everything on their heads and, they pulled a psycho on us. They took the person who we thought was going to be the main character and they killed them off right away with Casey Becker. And I think that that was so cool and shocking at the time. Now, this one has such a good cast of characters. I really like all of them, and I think they're all well developed. And this one does show that you can have those kind of cannon fodder characters, but you still can actually give them some development. That way they're not just completely bland like some of the ones that we've gotten in subsequent sequels. But I think that this one is just awesome because it gives us the birth of the best final girl in all of horror, in my opinion, and that would be Sidney Prescott, of course. So I do think that this one does have some really good standout scenes, such as Tatum's death in the garage door, as well as Randy reciting the rules to everyone. And, that is something that us horror nerds are going to be reciting forever. Now, when it comes for the reveal, I think that it is so iconic. No one was really expecting it to be two killers. And I think that that is just really awesome that they were able to pull that off. This film, as well as the rest of the films in this franchise go, they are always setting up different red herrings. That way, there are lots of people that you find to be suspicious. So even if Billy was really suspicious early on in the film, you might not be thinking that it's him by the end. And I think that that's really cool. I think that Billy is very enigmatic as a killer, and Stu is very charismatic. And when it comes to Matthew Lillard's performance, I think that it is equal parts unhinged and also hilarious, as well as terrifying, all rolled into one. And, when you ask someone my age what their favorite scary movie is, I feel like more often than not, it is Scream. I think that it was just hugely impactful, and it still is to this day. And we wouldn't be getting all these sequels if it hadn't, been as successful as it was. Now, I think that going forward, like I said, I want to see some more innovation, and hopefully we get to have a killer return at some point. I think that that would be a really cool route to take. Let me know your thoughts on that specifically down in the comments. And also let me know your Ghostface rankings, your Scream franchise rankings, anything you want to leave me down in the comments. I always love getting to read all that stuff for you. And definitely be thinking about the Ghostface ranking stuff, because that's probably going to be the next video unless I do end up going to see The Bride, in which case that one might be the next. But it's going to be coming really soon. So be thinking on all of that now. And if you enjoy this video, please leave a like on it. Consider subscribing if you haven't yet for more horror content. I do post 2 new videos each week. You can follow me on Instagram for updates on my channel, as well as additional horror content. You can also follow me on Letterboxd to see what I have been watching lately and my brief thoughts on any of those films. If you would like either of those, they are linked in my channel description for easy access for you guys. I want to say thank you to everyone who has been supporting my channel so far. It doesn't go unnoticed. My name is Devin. This is Carpenter Hill. Thanks for watching.